Very often in dangerous situations, there are only a few seconds to make the right decision. Usually, people do not even have time to think before rushing to help. This is especially important for rescuers. They know for sure that even the slightest delay in thinking about a plan of salvation can cost someone their lives. In a critical situation, there is no room for long-term thinking and a detailed plan. As a rule, people act with lightning speed, only later thinking that this could have been dangerous for themselves. When it comes to saving someone else's life, then the choice remains for everyone what to do in this situation. Rush to the rescue without thinking about the consequences for oneself, or stay and come up with a plan according to which no one may suffer. Sometimes such a delay can cost someone else's life. And if it comes to saving a loved one, then a double burden is imposed on the savior. At these moments, rarely will anyone think about their own safety and without hesitation will rush to help. What about animals? Pets usually show even greater devotion to their owners in critical situations, so they just rush to the rescue without hesitation, forgetting more often than not about their own safety. And how would a wild beast behave if they found themselves in a similar situation? Will they rush to the rescue or leave the victim alone in the danger? We will tell you about this in today's story. A boy lived in a distant taiga village. He loved his village and the forest around it very much, but one day his parents were offered a good job in the city and the boy moved to the city with his family. To be honest, he did not like living in the city right away. The dust, the noise, excessive hustle and bustle irritated the boy very much, and he promised himself that when he grew up, he would definitely return to his native village and continue living in the silence of the taiga forest. Time passed, he grew up, he got married, and he had a daughter. Of course, he secretly dreamed of returning to the village, but deep down he knew that there was no future for his little daughter in the village. He put his dream aside again until better times, deciding to return when his daughter grew up. And now 20 years passed. His daughter grew up, got married, and already gave birth to her own daughter. Then the man suggested to his wife that they should move out of the city, away from the noise and bustle, because nothing kept them in the city any longer. His wife always supported her husband in everything, and without hesitation, she agreed. The same year, the husband and wife moved to his native village in the taiga forest, to his parents' old home. Very quickly, the family settled in. They rarely went to the city, mainly only to sell the surplus of their farm products. In his free time, the man walked for a long time in the forest, picking mushrooms and berries, which they also took to the city for sale. On one of these walks, the man heard some stirring in the dense thickets of bushes. He carefully parted the branches and saw a small kitten sitting helplessly on the grass and only turning her head a little. She was very weak, and apparently for several days she had been going alone in the forest in search of her mother and food. The man very quickly realized from the characteristic tassels on her ears and the short tail that this was not an ordinary kitten, but a baby lynx. Despite the fact that the lynx is a wild animal, the man took pity on the poor baby and put her in his bosom and brought her to his house. There he prepared a special nutritious milk formula and fed his foundling to her fill. The little baby, having eaten, curled up in the corner of the room and fell fast asleep. The man looked at her for a long time, not knowing what to do with her now. Take her back to the woods? But she would die of hunger there. She is still too small to get her own food. After consulting with his wife, they decided to leave the lynx at home for a while so that she grew a little stronger and then take her back to the forest, to the wild. A couple of months passed in this way. The baby lynx had grown up noticeably and got stronger. She happily ate the food offered to her and slept and played in the yard all day. Almost every weekend, their daughter and granddaughter came to their village to visit them, breathe the fresh air, and take a break from the bustle of the city. The little girl very quickly became friends with the little lynx and spent the whole weekend playing with her furry pet. At first, the parents and grandparents were worried because, whatever one may say, the lynx is still a wild animal and could harm the girl. But observing her habits, it was clear that the lynx did not show the slightest aggression either towards the girl or towards other people, but behaved more like a domestic cat, and only her rare glances in the direction of the chicken coop betrayed a wild animal instinct in her. But this peculiar hunt for hens did not continue beyond a simple look. So a year passed. The animal grew into a beautiful big lynx, but she remained a docile and affectionate animal. She very often went for walks with the man in the woods, but never gave the slightest desire to stay there permanently and always returned home with the man. The next weekend, when their daughter and her family came to visit their parents again, the man invited the whole family to the forest for a picnic. There was a great clearing with a large place where they could sit comfortably. By lunchtime, the whole family had already settled comfortably in the place of their camp. The man started cooking barbecue, and the women laid the camp table. All of a sudden, they heard a shrill child's cry. Everyone quickly turned around to shout and saw a terrible picture. Their little girl was on the ground, and a meter away from her in a dangerous stance stood a large poisonous viper. The snake was preparing to attack and hissed at the girl. Most likely the child was playing in the forest and accidentally stepped on the snake without noticing it in the grass. And so the snake was preparing to attack. The adults understood that they would not have time to reach the girl, but still rushed to help. The snake covered the short distance between it and the girl in a short period of time, and her parents closed their eyes in fear. Then they heard the sounds of a struggle. It turned out that the lynx, which also heard the girl's cry, without a second of hesitation, rushed to help her. She did not even have time to think how dangerous this encounter with a poisonous snake could become for herself. She grabbed the snake by the tail without hesitation and pulled it away from the child. At that moment, the parents grabbed the girl and ran away to a safe distance. They looked with fear at the struggle between the wild cat and the venomous snake. The snake bit the lynx, defending itself against her attack, and she frantically tore at it with her mouth. After a couple of minutes, the fight was over. In this battle, the lynx won. The snake was defeated, but people realized that the cat herself had gotten a lot of poisonous bites. She sank to the ground and began to lick her wounds. The girl was sobbing this whole time in her mother's arms. She was very scared. At first, she was scared when the snake was not far from her and tried to attack her, and now she was crying from how much she felt sorry for her little lynx who had rushed to her aid. The lynx, meanwhile, gathered all her last strength and rushed headlong into the depths of the forest. The girl sobbed, called her pet, but the lynx never came back. The adults realized that the wild cat went into the forest to say goodbye to her life there. Of course, the picnic was ruined. Everyone was in a bad mood, and the people gathered together and returned home without eating barbecue that day. The girl all this time cried pitifully over her lynx. She could not believe that she would never see her again. So the weekend ended, and the daughter and the child went back to the city. The yard was noticeably empty without their pet. The man walked sadly, constantly glancing towards the forest, hoping to see a familiar silhouette. But he realized that the lynx received too many poisonous bites, which could hardly be compatible with life. With these thoughts, the man entered the barn, but what was his surprise when in a dark corner of the barn, he found his lynx. She was lying very weak, but alive. She survived, and she returned home. The happy man immediately called his daughter to please his granddaughter that their pet was alive and that she had returned home. Of course, the lynx was very weak, but the man looked after her and fed her very well, and very soon the lynx recovered and returned to her usual way of life. The girl still came from the city every weekend, and they played for a long time in the yard. The story with the snake was no longer remembered. They tried forgetting it as a terrible nightmare. So the lynx's lightning-fast decision to come to the girl's aid without delay saved the life of her little mistress, but could have cost her own life. But the wild animal, not thinking about herself and her own life, rushed into battle with a poisonous snake and defeated it. Friends, what do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe to the channel, and wait for the release of new interesting stories on our channel.